class together or being a presenter, which happened to be today, we're all volunteers. So if you'd like to be involved in our group, please let us know. New Knowledge Adventures, which we call NKA, has been around for about 15 years now, approximately. So wanted to make sure that all of you know that you're muted, but anytime you want to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself. If there's a question you want to ask, we're going to just start the process. And throughout that, if you want to put anything into the chat, I have Carol who's going to be watching the chat along with me. If there's any questions you want to ask along the way. Hopefully you did receive a basic pasta recipe that was sent to you. That was supposed to come out to you, which is, it's pretty simple. And if you didn't get it, we'll just show you a picture of it that's in our basic pasta book so that you can do this yourself or follow along if you're going to try to do it today. Okay, where's the recipe in case some of the people that don't have it need to see it? Because one person shook her head, I saw.
So you want to zoom in on the recipe here?
You're on pancetta.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fresh egg pasta is what we're going to do today. So it's approximately, these are all approximate measurements, the cups of flour and the eggs. And we'll show you that we use 2 types of flour when we're making the dough.
And we can send those out as well later.
So we have the semolina flour, and then we just have the traditional gold all-purpose flour. It's important that you do use the semolina, though. You're going to get a better pasta.
Okay, my turn. All right. So welcome everyone. You're at my very first pasta class, so congratulations. So as Marie said, we got a couple of different flours. I've already pre-measured them into this bowl, but and you don't have to do it this way, but this is so much more fun when you've got a nice, clean, solid tabletop to work from. Rather than doing it in a bowl, you can do it right here on the countertop. So I'm going to sift through the flour a little bit and make myself a little mountain of flour and semolina here. And if you're all here in class, we could ask questions and you could quiz me on my pasta making abilities, but we're not, so you can't do that. But you can throw something in the chat if you have a question about what I'm doing. All right.
So I think your recipe was supposed to be on your, as an attachment on your original Zoom invite. So when you received it, maybe last week, there would have been an attachment that you would have had to click on and you would have got the recipe. But if you don't have it, no problem. You can always send it out again.
All right. So what you see, what I did is I put it in a mound, and then I made a small little indentation into it, and I kind of worked that out. So now I've got a reservoir. And what that reservoir is going to do is it's going to hold the eggs. So now for this recipe, I'm going to crack 4 eggs into the middle of this. Now you'll find many different recipes out in any different books and online and all that. Basically, it is flour and eggs. Some recipes will add salt, a little bit of salt in it. We salt the water when we cook, so I don't really feel there's a need to have salt in the dough. Also, you'll find some recipes that have olive oil in it. That they're all just fine. Each one of those will vary the consistency of it. And so what you really want to watch for, feel for really, is how the moisture and consistency and the smoothness of the pasta is. You might need to add a little more dough. You might need to add a little more egg. Some recipes call just for the egg yolks. That's a much stronger pasta, much more yolky pasta. You'll need more of the egg yolks than you would if you used all of it. So not wanting to waste and always having been a a poor artist, starving artist. I always made it with as cheap and as much as I could. So once I have my little reservoir here in my flour, the easiest thing to do is just start to mixing it. And what you want to try to avoid is breaking through the edge, but even if it does, you can pick it up and screw it back in. So what I'm doing now is I'm breaking the yolks, but grabbing some of the flour in it as well. And it's just a slow process of mixing this up. One thing about the eggs is you can bring them up to room temperature. It makes this a little more comfortable of a process because then the eggs aren't so cold and your hands don't get so frozen. So as you see, it's just a little process of grabbing a little flour, mixing it in. Nothing too tough, and you just get a play. One thing I found is squeezing it through my hands and out the index finger and the thumb kind of helps to mix it and break up those clots of flour.
Obviously, he has his hands are occupied, mine are not, and you should be having a little glass of wine along the way, because this will make it a lot more fun as you are putting your wine.
I'm multitasking now.
There you go. Got to make this fun. And actually, you can do this and have your pasta tonight. So that's what we'll be doing. This will be our dinner tonight.
Yeah. So this was something I did. I was working for a company in Portland, Oregon, and I would get home and I would start making pasta like this. Then I would quickly start a quick little red sauce, just a can of tomatoes, a little bit of sauce and a little paste, throw in some seasonings, have that cooking, do my pasta while the pasta was drying. I would have it I would start my sauce, then I'd go over and I'd cut my pasta, hang it back on the drying rack again. And then the sauce was done. Then the pasta was ready. Throw it in the water and I'd have dinner, all within about 45 minutes. Okay, once it starts mixing up, you can see how it started drying up and I can pull it from my hands and it doesn't stick to my hands as much anymore. Then I just start working in. If I've got extra pasta in here, I can work that in as I need. If any of you have ever done any clay work and you've kneaded clay, this is what the whole process is. What I'm doing here now is just really trying to work the pasta in, the flour and the eggs, trying to make it as smooth as possible. So in my measurements, it's feeling like to me that I had a little extra flour because it's not quite as smooth as I wanted it. So I'm kind of stretching out a little bit so I can crack another egg in. Oop.
That's a good crack job there, you know. You
So
can
as you
pick it all up.
Right. So don't worry about the mess. Having a clean counter to start with is the important thing. And I can just pick it all up. Kathy, have we seen any questions or comments in the chat?
There were two questions that
Sure.
there were quite a few people who did not access the recipes, the attached recipes. So you probably want to resend them. And when they get the recipes, their questions will be answered, but I'll go ahead and ask them now. One person wanted to know if you were using all semolina or part.
It's part. I did a 3-to-1. Three
Okay.
parts of the flour and 1 part of the semolina. The semolina I have is is a little bit more granular. So I like having the flour to keep it a little thinner. But the
All right.
semolina adds a lot more flavor.
And then the other question that again is probably in the recipes, they wanted to know if the flour was unbleached.
Yes. all-purpose.
All right, thank you. That's it for, like I said, if you could send the recipes again, you can either look at the chat and see which people say they have not received them, or it might be easier just to send them, the recipes out again to all the people who had an invite. Okay, I'll
Yeah,
mute myself
I'll have-
again.
I'll have Sheena send that out to you because she does have those with her.
Okay, so now it's kind of hard with video to see, but my texture is smoothing out. It feels just a little sticky to my touch. It's still just a little bit too wet because I don't want to stick too much, but it feels very good for picking up the rest of this flour. Having a little tool to help scrape your countertop is very handy. It's not metal, it's all plastic, but it's a hard black plastic that really helps. Because once again, starving artists have to keep everything.
Yes.
By the way, I'm no longer a starving artist. Marie found me and saved me from that life.
Exactly. He had to get a real job, but he still has a passion for cooking. So this is one of his passions along with winemaking. So we fit this into our routine of making some homemade Italian dishes. And pasta being so simple and being pretty inexpensive, it's something that we do make quite often.
All right, so now you can see.
So about how much poundage wise is that?
Pound and a quarter, pound and a half.
Well, you know
maybe.
how people buy a pound of
Yeah.
pasta, they buy it in a package. It's usually 16
Let's
ounces.
see. I would say this probably will cut out to maybe 2 pounds of dry pasta. All right, so as you see then, the surface of it's pretty smooth and everything. What the recipe suggests is to let it set, so you can put it inside of a little cloth for a half hour or so, let it set and rest, and everything kind of melds together. We're not going to take that time today. And so now the next process, and this is my grandmother's pasta cutter. It's got a press here, 2 wheels that run together in the front that squeeze out, and you can press the pasta into thinner and thinner sheets, and then the cutting unit on the back side, either for linguine or for spaghetti. All right, so I'm going to wash my hands here real quickly. Got anything you want to say, Marie?
So that you can find these pasta makers. I don't know if you would look online. I've seen them in several Italian cooking stores. They now have, of course, electric ones made by Cuisinart. I've seen so many different types of pasta makers now that it's become a little more popular. But this one's an antique and it still works. So, I think if you take care of it, wash it and take it apart, make sure it's stored correctly, it can travel with you wherever you go.
Marie, I have a couple of questions or comments again in the chat box. People are asking, and I just, instead of me typing a message to each one, they're saying, I don't have the link to the recipe. It's not a link, everybody. It was an attachment to the original email, but we will send that out again. We'll send the recipes. And then they asked about the I've got to go up to find. I've got to go find it again. The pine nut pesto, if you make the pine nut pesto, and wasn't that one of the recipes that was attached?
No, it shouldn't have been, but I will be doing the class.
Yes.
There's gonna be a class on basil. And then with that class is gonna be pesto making. There's two of us doing that. One person is doing the basil planting and making the basil. I'm gonna do the pesto class. And that we're gonna do those together. And at that time, I will be making the basil pesto sauce.
All right. All right. And that class, for everyone's information, is April 20th. And I am typing in the chat box the link for you to register for that basil pesto class or any others through NKA. Marie, just to save us confusion, will you be attaching the recipes when you send? Are you the Zoom host for the basil pesto class, or is someone else?
I am not the Zoom host, I don't think, at that class, but I think it may be Sheena, but I'll just make sure that it does. She has both the pasta recipe and she has the pesto recipe. So she should be sending, the pasta should have come with this class and the pesto would come with the pesto class. If not, we'll make sure you get them somehow or other. We'll get them back out.
Thanks for clearing that up. And I'm going to mute myself again to register for the basil pesto class or any others. I'm going to put the address to register in the chat box.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so as you can see, what I've done is I took that large ball, cut them into smaller balls. Basically that size that I had, I cut it in half and then cut each half into thirds, roughly, to just get something that's more manageable, because you'll see this little bit of pasta will open up to a long sheet. So the first thing I do is just kind of flatten it out a little bit so I can get it through the rollers. Okay. All right, so now, and if you do not have a great little tool like this, a roller on a floured surface, roll it out flat and thin, and then you can cut it by hand with a knife. This just makes it so much easier. So what I'll start doing now is at the largest setting, I'm just going to run my flattened bit of pasta through. Now, what I like to do is to run it through a few times at the large. And as you saw that, this was not in the recipe, that first sheet that comes out, I like to fold it over 3 times. And then I take that fold and I turn it sideways and I run it through again. Depending on how well that comes out, I'm either done or I can always do that again. If this starts to look too wonky or out of shape for you, just fold it back in, run it through again. All right, I'm happy with this shape. So now I'm going to give it a little more flour. And this is where, again, it comes to touch. You have to kind of feel what it feels like to you. But I'm going to add a little more flour to both surfaces. So you saw I threw a little flour down on the top or on the countertop. Then I floured the top of it, rubbed it in. So this just helps to make sure everything's smooth and runs through the press. All right. And so now with each little turn, I'm going to move it a little bit. There's quite a few settings on these. You don't have to do each one individually. You can kind of jump a couple.
It's Laffy Taffy. It's that thin. It's about that thin now.
Yeah. Okay. One little trick that you can do is if it gets pretty long for you, you got short arms, you can put a little bit on, fold it back over in order to run it through again. All right. Now I've found, at least with my pasta maker, going to the very smallest setting makes the pasta very, very thin. So I don't go to the very smallest, I go to the couple before. And I'll run this through now. And you can see how that small little ball became what, 3, 4 feet, 3.5 feet or so. So now the trick is to move to the cutters. So my little handle comes out, goes into the spaghetti cutting one. And the trick with this then, using the cutter, is to have something on the floor, nice and clean to catch everything.
Yes,
And then
I got a few towels down here on the floor.
as I run it through, I want to get it caught at the very beginning there. And try to run the sheet through as flat and even as possible.
You want to come on this
You'll
side
see
here?
that I can control the direction of the pasta. And as it starts to come down,
That's really real thin.
now a couple of different ways of drying. You can either lay it flat on a towel or you can use a pasta drying rack. When it's this long on a pasta drying rack, you kind of have to run it through a few of the slats. All right. Did you move those? Yeah.
Augustino, one quick question that's in the chat box.
Yeah.
Do you recommend your recipes do say use olive oil? Do you recommend olive oil, or are there other substitutes that are acceptable?
Well, I'm Italian, so the only oil to use is olive oil. Oops. Yeah, I think olive oil is the one you want to use.
We did not.
Just because of the properties of it.
We did not use olive oil in this.
Not in
recipe.
this one, but we've
This
used it
recipe
before,
we
yeah.
did not, but we have used olive oil in other recipes.
Yeah. I would recommend it, but I don't know that it wouldn't work with a different oil. I would just be, if you're worried about the oil type, then just do the eggs and flour and you don't have to worry about that. Okay. I had a little problem. I started off too quickly.
And
I was running it through the smallest setting.
we don't add salt.
No,
We don't put salt in this. So
not in this one.
I
There
don't
are
know if
recipes.
there is a recipe. There were 2 recipes what we had that was, if like I said, was sent, but if you don't have it, one had salt and one did not. We don't use the one with salt because we always salt the water when we're cooking it. So to us, that's plenty of salt. And then depending upon your sauce, whatever your sauce you have, it probably has some salt too. So I'm on avoiding the salt because there's plenty in everything that you're going to be serving this with, along with the cheese on top. And we got more salt. So we are videoing this, recording this class, and we will post this class probably within the next couple of days. So you can watch it again or share it with the others if you'd like. It'll be on our YouTube channel after we complete it. And all of the classes that we do, almost all of them, are recorded and put on our YouTube. So you can always, if you miss a class, you can always find it again.
And Marie, I will put the YouTube address in the chat box for people.
Great. Yes. And so if you're going to cook this fairly soon, I've already got the pasta pot water on the stove right now. And I've already turned on the flames to high. So I'm getting my water ready. Like I said, you could let this dry if you'd like for 20, 30 minutes, or you can cook it right away. So it depends on what kind of time frame you're working with.
You just don't want it, the cut pasta to dry out too much because then it becomes brittle.
This looks
All right,
longer.
another question. Well, there are two questions now. Wow. Do you have to make the strips of dough so long? And does that depend on the size of the ball?
You do not have to make them so long, and yes, it does depend upon the size of the ball.
Okay,
Less pasta and how thin you squeeze it too.
all
So I
right.
could stop earlier. So, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. The pasta that you've already made, the thin pastas, June wants to know if that is angel hair pasta.
I guess so. I guess it is kind of an angel hair.
It's pretty, yeah,
Yeah.
would, it's real close to angel hair. That's for sure.
Yeah, the size of the pasta really does depend upon the cutters. So I'm going to quickly jump over and do a linguine noodle for you just to see the difference. So it all starts the same way. Oops.
So if you weren't going to use all of your dough at once, which we have done, you can put it in the refrigerator. And you can keep it, I think the longest we've ever kept it in the refrigerator is maybe 5-6 days.
Now it will turn a little brown on you.
Yeah, it discolors a little. I mean, you would wrap it. But what I'm saying, if all of a sudden you realize you have way too much pasta and you're not ready to make that much right now, you could put it in the refrigerator and you could make it within the next couple of days.
And for a smaller batch too, you can always just use 2 eggs. Cut the flour in half, use 2 eggs. Okay. So now with the linguine, because it's a thicker noodle, a wider noodle, I should say, I'm not going to push this, I'm not going to squeeze it anymore. I'm going to leave it a little thicker. You might be hard to see in the video, but this is not as translucent, not as thin as the sheets that I use for the spaghetti.
Size we're getting. So you can see on this that the pasta itself is a larger. See that you can see the difference there in the 2 sizes. The larger the pasta, to me, the more the sauce clings to it. So if you do a linguine, I think you're going to get more sauce on your pasta that's going to hang on to it.
Another question, for a large batch, can some of it be frozen?
You know, I've never frozen. I don't know if it if that will break it down. I don't know if it lasts just fine. It's not something I've ever done. I'd probably have to Google that and see if anyone knows that answer.
That's because I don't let her leave extra pasta around. If it's in the house, I'm eating it.
Exactly. I mean, if it was up to him, he'd eat pasta every day. But, you know, kind of have to limit that.
I know my father's watching and he doesn't believe that either.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people say in, you know, in Italy and even in America, pasta is a first dish. And then there's a second dish, and the second dish might be a meat or a chicken or a fish, something else. But I think when you eat pasta, to me, it becomes a meal, especially if you're eating it with sausage or meatballs or something that's got, you know, a filling that makes it more filling. So I always call it, it's a pasta is a first dish and a second dish. But also it depends on your portions.
We have another question. This one's from Gypsy. To store the pasta in the refrigerator, should you store the made pasta noodles with some flour or leave it in a ball?
You could go either way. If you are going to cut it and store it, then make sure it's well floured. Because if you just cut it and put it, so like this stuff here that I've already cut, I would dash it, throw a little more flour on it and then kind of roll it up and put it into a plastic bag or something, because the pasta will stick together as that moisture seeps in. And the extra flour, if you're not rolling it through the cutter or the rollers, the extra flour will just sit on the edge. And when you throw it in the water, most of that flour should just dissipate.
So if you have a little pet that's with you, I would make sure that you realize that they're probably going to be on the ground here looking for all the scraps. And there are the scraps that are falling all over the ground now.
Okay. All right. So we're going to boil it now?
We can. You
Okay.
want to boil, I think they're going to cook a little different, so we got to
Yeah,
go
we're
one
gonna
at a
boil them
time. So coming over to the stove, I've got a pot of water, like I said, already going, ready for us to get going with this. I happen to have made sauce today, but I made red sauce. So I've got some sauce going on here with some sausage and meatballs, and so I've made a red sauce. I know that someone said you did get the pesto sauce, but that's going to be when I do the pesto class. That'll be a different story. That'll be a green sauce. This happens to be a red sauce. So cooking the homemade pasta is very quick. So just so you know, maybe on when you buy store-bought, it always says on there, I put salt in. So don't forget, you got to put salt in. I put about that much.
Well, that's a lot. Is that much?
Okay, I'll put less. My second cook here is telling me it's too much. So I'll put this much. Okay, and we're going to drop this in, and it normally cooks within
3 to 5
3
minutes.
to 5 minutes max. So you don't want to overcook it. I do put just a little bit of olive oil in the water. I just like the fact that I know there's some oil in there, and so it does not stick.
And then I like to make sure that I mix it up a little bit. You can see how it stays apart from each other, kind of floating in the water. That just keeps it from clumping up and making a heavy pasta ball. Okay. And now we get to drink wine again.
Okay, well, we'll be watching this.
So Gypsy, the second half of your question, you asked, is it better either way? I just answered, if you do cut it, flour it, I think it's probably easier to store it in the fridge in a ball, because then you can rework it again afterwards. And that way, if it needs a little more moisture or needs a little more flour in that cutting and or thinning and cutting process, you've got more control back over it.
So I don't really time it, but like I said, I would say you don't cook it over 5 minutes. I just basically, you can stick your finger in and try it. That's the best way to know if it's done.
No.
Well,
See how it's balling up on the surface though.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see.
In Italian, this is anything that strains pasta is basically called, pasta stay, water go. That's kind of a broken version, or school basta. So school out the pasta. I'm using a little Sicilian dialect from my family,
Okay.
but it looks like it's cooked.
Yep. Okay. Okay, you want to sauce the Joel?
So I'm just putting a little bit of sauce on the bottom of the bowl.
Oh,
I don't know how many of you have eaten homemade pasta, but definitely has a different flavor in the sense that it just tastes very light. And I don't know if that means you can eat more or not. Depends, I suppose, what else you're eating with it. But I would guess that looks like about a pound of pasta.
Does it? Okay.
It looks like a pound.
Because that's roughly a third of the pasta that I made. It was two of the balls of pasta I cut into spaghetti, 2 in linguine, and I still got 2 balls left.
So did you put linguine in?
I will when it boils again.
Okay, so we're waiting for the water to come up again. Oh, back over. You gotta see what it looks like here, with the sauce on it. So I like to use Romano, Pecorino Romano, and Parmesan. I buy the chunks of both, grate it up and mix it up together. There's just something about both cheeses together. So I don't know if you buy it already, grated. I like to use the thinner grating of it. It's totally your choice, I suppose, which cheese you like. I just think if you have the opportunity to buy it yourself and grate it, it's just nothing like fresh cheese on the pasta to just bring it up to a different place. So
Okay.
always have extra cheese.
All right. So for one more trick for you, when you lay the pasta out like this to dry, rather than using the rack, one of the nice things about doing it this way is you don't have to carry the pasta over each by itself. You just kind of roll it up like this in a little ball, leave one end open, leave the ends open, and then just kind of drop it straight in. A much cleaner, quicker, easier way to do it. And where's our sporket? All right. Okay.
And I won't add oil again because I did already have the oil in the water and we're using the same water for this batch too. If you throw out your water and you start all over and bring it to a boil again, then you'd have to add the salt and you'd have to add a little more oil to it. But if you're making a couple of batches at a time, you don't have to really get rid of the water. This particular pot, if you just lift it up, and then that way, you can keep using the same water to boil more pasta. You don't have to refresh it, let's say. So did we get any other questions on that piece to the puzzle?
No, oh, no, just a lot of comments about what a cool process and the food looks yummy and we're all getting hungry.
Well,
So come on over.
Yeah.
That's what I
Manger.
thought, there
Manger.
will be a time, I think, when we get to do these classes again in person, let's hope, keeping our fingers crossed for possibly the fall, let's say. And if we do these cooking classes again, hopefully we'll all get to eat together. Because I know that's part of camaraderie, especially with all of the volunteers. I know we like
All right.
being together, sharing time together.
Okay, so. And now it's back to you, Marie, on the screen.
Got it. Okay, well, we appreciate you being here with us today. And like I said, if you did not get the recipes, I'm sorry. I will have Sheena sent those out to you because she has a listing and she actually sent out the Zoom link. So I know that they're hooked into her somehow. And at that time, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to send me an email if you'd like, or give me a call, whichever you'd like to do. I can give you that information if you need. And hoping that you'll go in, make sure you attend all of our classes. I happen to be on the curriculum committee, so I help look for all these classes. We're always looking for someone to step and do something that is a passion of theirs or something that they know a lot about. If you have any interest, please let us know. And there will be more classes coming up all the way through the beginning of May. We have 3 or 4 more classes next week. Carol, do you want to promote what might be coming up this next week on classes?
Oh, yeah, let me grab my list. I have my wine, but I'll have to do the list also. Okay,
All
coming up.
right. Well, there you go. We'll celebrate.
Yeah, there we
together.
go. I'll get the wine. Well, I've got to hold it in front of my, there we go. There we go. Okay. Let's see. We usually promote for the following week, so let me really quickly look. On the 28th, we have Music Circle and Connection.
Oh, and we have, that's right, Tai Chi starts Monday.
Yeah, and then
Isn't it?
Tai Chi is also on Monday, the 28th. Wow. Zoom Basic session 2 is on Monday, the 28th. Boy, that's a busy day. Then Native Voices in Idaho is on the 29th, which is Tuesday. And on Wednesday, Complimentary Alternative Healthcare Choices that's it for next week. Yeah, sounds like some fun classes.
Attend any of those classes that are coming up and you can still, I think you did go ahead and put that link in there for them to go check out classes. Absolutely. So you can still sign up for any of those classes that are coming up for the next month, 6 weeks into May. And we look forward to seeing your shiny faces on Zoom. Thanks so much. Appreciate you being here today, Carol. Thanks for your help. And like I said, this has been recorded and we will have it posted in the next day or two, and share it with your friends. And maybe you have something special you'd like to cook.
All
And
right.
that'd be great.
Thank you all for joining us. And like I said, 45 minutes, you can have dinner ready for you. Take care.
There you go. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm surprised you didn't say bon notte or ciao.
I know. I thought about it
Right?
all along the way. I meant to say ciao.
Yeah.